Hello and welcome back to the practice. Episode 31. Happy Tuesday to you all. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming back. I think, for those of you who tuned in last week, this scene you're looking at now will look familiar. This is something we modeled up, rigged with Mixamo, animated, and added cloth dynamics to last week. And so we're going to start the fun process this week of sort of putting the final touches on it, texturing, lighting, all that good stuff, and then we're going to output some frames and stitch them together and make a sweet little looping animation. So for new guests, this is the practice. What we call this weekly live streaming session where I come to the table and really in a very unrehearsed, unedited way share my creative practice, share sort of my workflow, some of the tools I've been using, and just sort of share how the sausage is made. No sort of warts and all, if you will. No major editing or anything like that. This is all live streamed right to your faces every Tuesday. For those of you returning, I see Sam Finn in the comments. Good day, sir. Thanks for tuning in again this week. Appreciate it. This model here might look familiar to you. So we worked on it last week. I think we've got the animation where we want it to be. You'll remember this jumping woman with the crazy mask and the skirt and the tube top. So what I want to do now then is start adding in hair. And I've never, to be honest, this is the first time I'm adding hair to a exported Mixamo rig. So I'm a little bit unsure how this is all going to go, but we'll figure it out together and make something that looks pretty awesome, hopefully. So what we're going to start is by selecting the vertices where we want to add hair. Let's see. Huh. It's a little bit asymmetrical to me, surprisingly. Oh, that's because of where we're selected. I've only selected a portion of the base mesh, so it's moving it around a little bit. That makes sense. All right, so now what we want to do. Sam, the freelance life has been treating me pretty well so far. In terms of lifestyle, it's been super, super awesome. My last job was really quite stressful and was, sort of, I felt like I was on call all the time. I was making updates at 9, 10 o'clock at night and always on conference calls and stuff like that. So, much better. To be perfectly honest, this month has been a little bit slow. I haven't had a lot of client work come in, so I've been making a ton of personal work, which has been great, but in terms of client projects, this month has been sort of slow. So hopefully that'll pick up a bit next month. I might send out some promotional materials and do some stuff to hopefully drum up a little bit of business. Thanks for asking, though. What I want to do is go to Simulate, Hair Objects, and Add Hair. Boom. So there's our hair. Looking a little bit long and ridiculous at this point. So now we're going to have to go through and make some adjustments, right? So guys, yeah, all of this stuff is going to need to be overwritten. So, turn this way down. I don't think we want super long hair. I also want to test initially So it seems like it's behaving pretty well, actually. I need to add some hair colliders, which I'll probably add up here. And what we'll want to be doing is adding that to the mask. How do I do that? That seems to do the trick. Let's take a look at what this hair looks like. Great. So So while I'm working on this hair, I guess a little side story from this weekend that I felt like sharing, and perhaps a little bit of encouragement, or at least a trick or a way of looking at things that works for me. So yesterday I spent all day, well actually sorry, yesterday was Monday. Gosh, my freelance lifestyle is getting a little confused on the days of the week here. On Sunday, I spent the entire day at Pinnacles National Park, which is about 2 hours south of where I live in San Francisco, just hiking and getting outside. Pinnacles, if you're in the area, I would highly recommend checking it out because it's just some of the most beautiful stuff I've ever seen. Incredible rock formations. We saw some California condors, which was really, just amazing. Largest bird in North America. I'm routinely just totally inspired by nature. I think, just in terms of forms and beauty and inspiration and grandeur, there's just nothing like a day of getting outside and getting away from the computer. And, as much as I love consistently working hard and showing up at the table and digging into whatever application or technique you like to use to make your work, and just routinely, putting in the hours. I think all that's super, super important. But really, I think, frequently getting away from that, taking a day of the week or maybe a couple days a month, and getting away from your typical, workflow, your typical day-to-day basis, and getting outside and go somewhere where there's no cell reception. Turn off the phone, leave the screens behind, get outside, exert yourself, have a little bit of physical activity. And I find that really, can sort of break the cycle of uninspiration or disinspiration, whatever you want to say, to get you motivated, and it can be a really refreshing change of pace. So I would say check that out. Go outside, everyone. So what you might want to do now actually is set up a camera angle, because as we start getting into texturing, figuring out what our final look is going to be, I think, somewhere in here is actually going to be good. Cool. Set a camera. And I always like to turn off the camera because it's not something you need in the rendering, and it's something that often looks silly in your viewfinder. FYI. Hey Sam, to answer your question, no, I did not go alone. I have at times done. I mean, they don't recommend doing any sort of outdoor long hikes, full day things alone. You really want to bring a buddy or a group of friends, which is what we did. We packed a lunch and had a really great time. But sometimes, if I just really need to get out of the house and none of my buddies feel like hiking or have the time, there's lots of areas nearby, some smaller parks and state parks as opposed to national parks, and places where I can just go for a couple of hours and enjoy the sunshine and get away from the computer for half an hour or a couple of hours. It's big. It can really go a long way. So right now I'm going to add a bit of, I don't know if I want thickness. What just happened? I overwrote all that. What I want to do is add a bit of interest to the hair, right? So you go into the material. I don't know if you guys have ever worked with hair before, but if you go into the material, there's all these options like frizz and kink that we're going to turn on. And that's going to add a lot of sort of body and interest, because the hair now seems a little bit less than interesting, perhaps. Awfully straight and CG looking. So adding just a bit of kink and frizz, I think, will give it a lot more kind of movement, and it'll make it look more like you think that the hair on a crazy tribal mask like this should look. What I'm also going to do is, what is this doing? There we go. So I wanted to turn this start time to -1 in the hopes that when we run our simulation, the hair will already be in a relaxed state. You can see from when we loop that when you start at frame 0, the hair is automatically in an upright position. Another thing I can do is use simulate hair tools. Brush. We can sort of brush it down a little bit. Get us closer to where we want to start. And that's what I think I'm noticing a lot about dynamics in Cinema 4D is frequently want to get it close to where it should start. See, that's not cool, because what that did was, maybe that's because I still have the brush selected. You'll notice the hair isn't moving anymore, which is definitely not what I want. I want that to move and bounce. There we go. I think it's because I had the brush selected. That's funny, Sam. Let's try this with a little ambient occlusion and see if the hair starts looking a little bit better. You see, it still does look awfully CG. I might turn down the specular a bit further. But this hair's coming together a little quicker and easier than I was expecting, which is a good thing. I know last week I was hoping to finish this whole thing up, but I wound up spending, a full hour just finessing the details of the garments here, which isn't always the best way to spend a stream. So let's actually make this a little bit different color, the specularity. Let's see what we get. Looks like, oh, made a huge difference in the mask. It didn't make much of a difference at all with the hair. Let's add a little bit of light. And this, I think, is going to be some of the funner stuff. Okay, thank you out there, evening gentlemen. It's always great once you're done working through some of the tough stuff, like the dynamics and things like that. It can be really great to start lighting and texturing, and that's when you see a lot of your hard work start paying off, and the piece really starts coming together. So it should be a fun stream today, I'm hoping. So we look there. Well, you know, you kind of want to turn shadows on, right? Man, she's looking pretty crazy there, huh? I'm loving it. Make the hair a little bit longer. Pull back on some of the frizz and kink, actually. I think it's a little bit too much. Let's also play with length. Might be a little bit too close on our camera angle. Look at that. She's popping right out. So where's the height of the jump? It's right about there. Let's grab that camera. Pull it back just a little bit. Up just a little bit. Get it right. This will just hit relax on that hair. I think it's hopefully going to keep that first frame feeling a little bit more organic. It's still jumping a little bit there. Not loving. Maybe if I turn this back a little further, relax. See if it unrelaxes. Look at this. A little bit. Hi, Tom. What's up, Søren? Thanks for coming back. Appreciate the routine tune-ins. Pretty tight, pretty tight. What I'm going to do here is add a little bit of additional lighting and then actually probably knock out some test frames just because I want to see how this hair is behaving. And it's tough to tell sometimes with just the simulated guides. So let's see here. I'm going to do this at maybe, let's do it at 600 pixels across. All frames. It's only 61 frames, so let's just see how this behaves. While that's going on, I'm going to start working on texturing the rest of the thing. So start with some skin. So with the skin, what I think I'm going to do is actually in the luminance channel, this can give you a sort of a realistic look. Come in here and add some surface scattering. You definitely want to turn it way down, or else your model looks sort of internally illuminated. But the subsurface scattering allows light to pass into the inside of the geometry, which is like, you know, it gives it sort of a waxy look, or a more flesh, realistic flesh type look. Which, as you notice, if you like hold your hand up to a flashlight, your hand isn't just totally opaque. Like the light will pass through your flesh to a certain extent, and that's what subsurface scattering helps to simulate. So a little bit of that. See how this is going. How's this hair behaving? Bit of a weird hair day there. I'm going to go with some awfully brightly colored garments. Let's keep that theme going. What the heck was that? this gradient on properly. I'm trying to get the top and the bottom to sort of match in terms of their gradation. I'm not sure how much that is going to translate because of the gap in between the two, but let's check out how this animation is treating this. Not bad. That initial state for the hair still looks a little bit weird, so I'm going to even try and turn that back a little bit. The hair. Cool. Right, so what color do you think works for the mask? Maybe we should go with like sort of a whitish multicolored look. Hmm. That's annoying. Let's see if we even need that red back there with all the shadows. Hello, from Korea. Go to sleep. Get your Z's. It's only 9:40 here in the Bay Area. Let's check in on our test frames. You know, not so bad. Here's got some good bounce to it. I wonder if we can turn the stiffness up on these a bit. And then generate dynamics. Alright, collisions. There's a stiffness one. Advance, maybe it's not wise to get into all that. Hmm. Add a bit of texture via noise. Alright, so Hmm. I'm just setting up now a bit of an alpha channel on the edges of the floor. Do a little bit of a soft fade, a little bit of a sort of seamless floor look. And alpha is a great way to do that without like crushing your rendering time. So let's see how this looks. Right, so I'm digging it. Not psyched about the way these are behaving. So I wonder if we just turn these back to UVW mapping. I know that. Let's see. See here if we can just set it up using UVW mapping and using these sliders to sort of to place where we want the gradient to lie. You can see like on the top, it's too big. But it also seems like it's fading in the wrong direction, but I can fix that actually just by so there we go. All right, so hmm. So that should stay put as she jumps, which is good. What I think I want to do is actually exaggerate this fade a little bit so you can tell what's really going on. Push that in, add a little bit of red to the bottom, really exaggerate that, and fade. So you get some of that yellow into the top. We're obviously a little bit shy on lighting, so I'm gonna grab this light. As you can see, I just turned it up a little bit. I think I'm also gonna add another light. This, of course, is going to increase your render time, but if I can light this sufficiently without having to turn on global illumination, then that's going to save us a bunch of time in the long run. So let's see where we stand here. See, huge difference in the amount of light. Here you can even turn this newest light down a bit. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not loving the coloration here. I think the skirt's fine. Maybe I want to make the skin a little bit darker. A bit more sort of rich. Turn down this just a hair. And then I think I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go white hair with a darker mask. So let's see what we get here if we go real light. Whoop. While that test rendering is going, I'm just pushing this a little bit further, trying to get that fade going. It's a little bit more obvious now, which is good. We got, I think that white hair is actually pretty cool. See, totally unrehearsed and unedited, you guys. I'm just sort of making it up as I go. But that's the way this kind of thing works a lot of the time. That's convenient. With the belt area already selected. And we do is there's some weird sort of intersecting that's happening with the skirt. And the belt, what I'm going to do is just, let's see what color should I use here. Let's use white again. Huh, that's weird. Why did it turn the arms white? Because I had them selected, dummy. That's why. So let's try this again. So this sort of quote-unquote belt geometry is sort of what I've been hanging the skirt off of, if you will. See you later, Sam. Thanks for stopping by. I'll consider going earlier, but might be a little too early for us California folks. Hmm. Hmm. Still trying to get this color balance right. I'm still not totally loving it. It might be a matter of turning on GI, which, you know, I try to avoid. But the shadows are a little harsh too, so. Oh. See, Radiance Cache, Preview. I just turn this stuff on the lowest possible settings. So we've been dealing with about a 40-second frame per frame render time, so let's see what GI does to that. I bet it'll add about a minute. It's definitely going to make the subsurface scattering look a little more realistic. It's definitely going to make the light carry a little further. See what it means for those deep shadows and sort of the recesses of the mask. It's actually helping a bit with the look of the hair too, I feel like. times. Didn't kill the render times. Only added 4 seconds. That does not seem right. Just basically reset all the hairs. So I'm going to try combing them a slightly different way. So now I grab my brush, sort of zoom out. I'm going to like push them all kind of back a little bit. Get a few of them out of the sort of the face. I think it might help the look. Let's try this now and give it a bit of a dynamics. -6, relax, relax. So I'm liking what this pattern does for the look of the piece. Still not sold on the texturing of this mask yet. I think that's what's hurting us. Hey Dexter, what's up, man? All right, progress, getting there, hopefully. I think switching up the colors in the mask a little bit is helping. I made the skin tone a little bit darker and the mask a little bit lighter overall, which I think the contrast is actually helping us out a bit there. Look at that, you got some really weird stretching that's happening. I think what we want to do there actually is – weight this with the UVs a little bit. So, not UVs, with the weight tool. So if I grab, go to character, weight tool, I'm going to get in here and see where that mask is being distorted from. I bet it's in the head. You see this coloration is what's affecting. Now I'm just holding control to eliminate that weighting from that bit of geometry. I think that's going to help a lot, actually. So I'm going to turn off visible only so that I can paint right through this guy. Now, hoping that'll sort out some of that weirdness that's happening. I need to go a little bit further in. Yep. That's good. So if I can get that deformation to happen only really like on the neck geometry of this character, then we'll be in much better shape. We'll have less distortion. And that's the one thing with this Mixamo modeling, or Mixamo rigging rather. A lot of times you're going to need to get in there with your weight tool, sort of fix up some of this stuff. You can see, even though I've got visible only turned off, I need to get in there and go inside the head. And after we do that, we also want to make sure, since we're sort of painting blindly a little bit here, that we're not just like totally jacking up the geometry in other parts of the model, deselecting who knows what. So that doesn't look great now. I'm going to undo all of that. Actually, you can see underneath this armpit here, I think what we really want to do here, yeah, is just add all this geometry to the head, which is this, what do you call it, bone structure. That is not ideal neck weighting. It's a little bit sketched there, but I think since it's just a short segment, it would be okay. So let's check it out. It obviously looks better in that frame, I believe. Oh, there's some weirdness happening in the mouth. Oop. I'm holding shift and just making sure all this stuff in the head and the teeth is all connected where it needs to be, which is going to give us much cleaner animation. So that's looking a lot better, actually. She kind of looks like a deranged clown, huh? Especially with these bright primary colors in the mask. I guess the white looks like face paint with big goofy lips, but I'm digging it. I'm digging it. adding these bands to the arm, I think might help. Just a little bit of asymmetry is cool. And yeah, that would be nice to get a little bit more color in there. Yeah, that helps. And that's also, I think, going to accentuate some of the movement in the arms and things like that. What I might even do, actually, is give her some anklets as well. So let's get back in there. And the legs. The legs, I'm going to go symmetrical. So let's do this. Bright white. Cool. Oops. Oops. I think those little bracelets and anklets were just, maybe the right amount of detail that this thing needed. And actually in this shot, I'm really liking the way the gradient in the hair is feeling. So I think we're getting pretty close to knocking out final frames. My only little bit of concern actually is the way the hair is going to relax and behave when we go to render final frames. What I've actually done is grab the rig. You can see that we've got 61 frames of animation, but I'm going to do 63 frames total and give the hair a frame at the end and a frame at the beginning to sort of relax. And I may even blend those in post-processing to give you a little bit more of a seamless look. In fact, let's do this. Let's give it 2 frames on either end. And that's going to give us a little bit of relaxation in the hair and the cloth, which I think might give us a more realistic simulation. Also going to go to hair, tell it to relax a little bit. Let's see, what do you think is a good final output size? Let's call it 1,000 by 1,000. Let's let it rock. And I think since these are only going to take about 40 seconds a piece, I might just let the stream continue to roll as we render all these out. I'm also going to do save this bad boy. Final output. Now, typically what I'll do, it's much safer to render individual frames, but since I'm going to bring this all into Photoshop and do a little bit of sketching on top of it, I'm just going to render it all out as one QuickTime movie. So let's see. I think we're just about set. Oh, that ain't right. She disrobed. All right, so let's see. Yeah, let's rock it. Here we go. Final frames. Cool. Oh, right. So I forgot to do all frames. There we go. Some expert I am. Let's try that again. Yes, I want to overwrite. Okay. So we're looking at about another 52 minutes of frame rendering here, which I think might be a little bit much for the stream. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Should I let it run, or should I cut it off here, and maybe we can handle post processing and retouching and all that stuff next week? You know, I've never stretched one of these out into a 3-week process, which might not be the end of the world, but it's always great to be on to the next thing, you know. So maybe we can just leave the post processing undocumented. What do you guys think? Anyone still watching have an opinion? I know probably viewership has gone down a little bit. All right. Well, it seems as activity is a little bit low, and I haven't even gotten a response as to whether or not I should let these keep rocking. I'm going to go ahead and cut the stream. I'm going to stitch this together quickly and post it and call it an episode. I think most of everyone tuning in would know how to take these frames and stitch them and loop them and do any post processing. Um, this has been a fun one. This is definitely one of the more complex character rigs I've ever worked with. We got two pieces of cloth dynamic and some hair moving around. Definitely some challenges to overcome. Definitely took a little bit longer than a lot of the other streams I do on the practice. So, it's been fun. It's been real. I've learned a few things, and I hope you have too. We've got this cool little animation to show for it. So as always, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll definitely be back here live again next Tuesday at about 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern. Um, if you found this useful, if you found it inspiring, if you have any buddies who you think could benefit from it, please share. Please leave a comment. Please subscribe. If you have any questions, I'm always trying to make myself available to answer them to the best of my abilities, or at least just kick off some sort of discussion. Continue to grow the community around the practice. So keep showing up to the table. Keep putting out good work. Share it with me. And, I'd love to see what you guys are all working on. I'd love to give a few pointers at all if I can, or just, like I mentioned, just share what we're working on. Just keep the community going. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.